Good afternoon, everyone. As we know, we were discussing the computer architecture and organization subject with the four topics. As we started with the four topics of machine instructions, addressing modes, ALU, data path and control unit, and the last one is instruction pipelining. In today's lecture, we will see about ALU, data path and control unit, its type and working. Okay, so what is basically ALU? ALU is a mathematical brain of a computer. ALU is a digital circuit that provides arithmetic and logical operations. Basically, ALU can be categorized into two portions. The one portion which basically deals with the logical instructions like AND, OR, XOR, NOT, and another portion which deals with the arithmetic operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, mod operation. But in all, generally we call arithmetic and logical unit as in whole and as a digital circuit to provide both logical and arithmetic operations. Basically, it's the ALU is combination of different circuits. Like when we say it's arithmetic and logical unit, it means it has circuit for doing addition, it has circuit for doing multiplication, divisions, and mod operations, multiplication. Likewise, it has circuits for AND operation, logical AND operation, logical OR operation, XOR operation, NOT operation. So we can say that lots of the circuits are available, and depending upon the instruction we have to initiate a particular circuit to complete our task. Like if we want to do addition, then we have to revoke the addition circuit which performs addition of two numbers. Okay, so either the numbers are integer or floating, which type of circuit we need to initiate, how to perform number addition of three numbers, how to perform additions of two numbers. So all these things would be done at ALU in association with the control unit. See, we need to always remember that without control unit our system cannot work. Okay, so ALU is fundamental building block of central processing unit of a computer, and in modern computers we may have one ALU or more than one ALUs. Okay, so if we want to speed up the system, or in high speed computer systems where one ALU is not sufficient, then we may have more than one ALU, and those ALUs are arranged in one particular manner. Normally it's arranged in parallel so that the performance of one ALU should not affect the performance of another ALU. Okay, so there are different arrangements, different designs when we have more than one ALU, but normally we have one ALU that is sufficient for normal system. Most of the operations are performed by one or more ALUs which load data from input registers, and the operands need to be brought to ALU where the operations is to be done. Okay, so it's like whenever we have we want to perform something, so one operand or two operand data, whatever we had seen in the machine instruction, what kind of instruction we do have, one operand, two operand, three operand, whatever it is. So both the operands, normally we have two operands, so both the operands should be present at the bus of the ALU or the temporary registers of the ALU. Result is normally collected at the temporary register of ALU, and from that we are going to collect it in the register, CPU register or the memory as per the instructions. Okay, so the operands needed to be brought to ALU for performing the operation, and in ALU the operation is done. We can have an example of ALU. If we wish to add two numbers present in the memory location, then they are brought into ALU, and here the actual addition is performed using the add circuit. Now just recall the things. Okay, we want to add two numbers, and we are assuming that these two numbers are at some location of the memory. So what we have to do, after bringing the instruction, we need to bring those two operands. We need to store these two operands in the temporary register of ALU. Then the exact addition will be performed in ALU using or choosing a add circuit. Okay, add circuit for two operands. Okay, now if we are defining that we want to add two integers number, so we have to appropriately choose the add circuit for integer number. Then the addition will be performed. After the calculation, the sum may be stored in the main memory or in an output register as per the requirement of the instruction. Okay, so after calculation, the result would be definitely in the temporary register of ALU. Now from the temporary register of ALU, it should be sent to the proper location as per the requirement of the instruction. If the output should be stored in the CPU register, then it would be stored in CPU register, or else if it is mentioned that the destination register or the output register output location is the memory location, then from this temporary register of ALU, the result goes to the memory specified memory location where we want to store the result. ALU in conjunction with control unit, that is CU, performs all operation. I earlier told you that without control unit we cannot have any sort of operation either in ALU or in any part of the CPU. So you can say that CU, control unit, is what the backbone of the system, because without control unit we cannot have any sort of operation. It basically provides sequence, it organizes the events, the sequence of events, and then only we can perform any sort of operation. The processor normally contains a number of high speed storage elements called as registers, and these registers are temporary storage. See, the registers, whenever we talk the term register, it's always associated with the processor. So processor is having shorter memory, and it is associated with itself. Within the CPU the registers are there, the size of the registers are less, and there are not very huge number of registers, there are limited number of the registers. These are the temporary storage. Now why we are using registers, that is again an important issue. While discussing ALU, we need to remember that these temporary registers, which are few in numbers and not big in size, why we are using these registers? Because the excess of operand or whatever data we want for performing any sort of operation, if you are putting it in register, then the excess from these registers would be very fast. Why? Because see, if you are putting the operand in the memory location, then we need to issue the signals to bring the operand from memory location and then put it into some temporary register, and from there we will take it to ALU for performing the operation. But if that the same operand is put in the processor's register, then the access would be very fast, and we can see that the access time to the register are 5 to 10 times faster than the memory access. And if the access time would be less, then the operation speed would be high and the system would be faster. Okay. So if instruction is having a memory location of for operands, then it would be slower, and if instruction is having registers in the operands are in the register, then the execution of that particular instruction, later instruction, would be faster 5 to 10 times in comparison with the first one. The control unit tells ALU what operation to perform on the available data. This is again all the operations of ALUs depend upon the control unit. All the components of CPU must coordinate with each other to perform any operation. So we can say mere selecting the particular circuit in ALU and providing the data to ALU is not sufficient. We should have a proper coordination of all the components of of CPU to perform one particular operation. Means we should have a proper coordination with the memory locations, because many a times the operands are in the memory location. We should have a proper coordination with the CPU registers, because many of the times the operands are in the register. So it's not sufficient that we have the operand and the particular circuit of ALU, then the operation would be easily performed. We should have the sequence and coordination with each component of CPU, because sometimes we are taking the data from the input devices, we are sending the data to output devices. So we must have a coordination of input and output devices. Sometimes we are having data in the memory, in the secondary memory, so we need to brought it to the primary memory. So all this coordination must be done in a proper way. This coordination must be done in an organized way, and the organized coordination is performed by control unit. Okay, so this sequence of the events, or to perform one instruction execution, how the component should be brought, how the things should get execute, these all have a particular sequence, and this should execute in a particular sequence, and to take care of these sequence the control unit is there. So all the organization and coordination task is performed by the control unit. Control unit provides control signals to all other units of CPU. Okay, so how the control unit works? The control units provides signals to whom? Signals to all the components of CPU. So you can say it's a connecting part. Control unit is the one which connects all the components of CPU, so that it can coordinate with each other, and the proper sequence should be there, and the instructions would be executed in a proper way. See, if the instructions are executed in the proper way, then the program would be in a proper way, because program is nothing but the set of instructions. So each instruction, for each instruction we are caring that the instruction should be in the proper way, so that definitely the program would be in the proper way. And if the program is organized in a proper way, if the program executes in organized in the proper way, then definitely the output would be very correct. Okay. Now, CU provides control signals to all other units of CPU. It sends timing signals to and from the components of the CPU. Timing signals are very necessary. Clock, the CU need to dispatch the signals according to the clock, because if the clock is not properly synchronized, then the execution won't be organized or won't be in a coordinated manner. See, if the clock for bringing the instruction is given later and bringing the operand is given first, would it execute in a proper way? Of course not. The instruction must be brought first, and then the operand must be brought. Okay, so unless and until we decode the instruction, we won't be able to know where exactly the operands are, and from where we need to brought the operands, where we need to store the results. So all these things will get unless and until we'll decode the instruction. So the first instruction should be brought. Okay, so how the sequence would be given? The sequence would be given by the control unit. Okay, and using the time or using the clock or the timing, the synchronization would be done. So control unit not only transforms signals within computers and its component, but also with its peripheral devices. Okay, so we cannot assume that the control unit which resides inside CPU, which is the component of CPU, only controls the rest of the components of CPU. It's not true. It is, although it's a component of CPU, but it controls all the devices directly connected or indirectly connected with CPU. Directly connected means all the registers which are within the CPU, or ALU which is within the CPU. Apart from these things, it connects with the IO devices, it connects with the memory. So everything which is directly indirectly connected with CPU is controlled by control unit. The data transfer between CPU and memory are controlled by CU, that is control unit, and large set of control lines or wires carries signals or data. So we can say that these wires or these lines not only carries the signals, control signals, but it also carries the data. Okay. A data path. Now we came to the second portion, data path. A data path is a set of functional unit that carries out data processing operation. So in the previous slide, in the last point, we talked about that large set of control lines or the wires carry signals, oblique data. So what it means, the wires or the copper lines on the PCB circuit which carry signals is also sometimes used for carrying the data. It means multi-purpose wire or multi-purpose line. So if these wires are connected to the components for carrying the signals, it may be used for data, or there may be separate wires to carry the data. There may be separate wires to carry the signals, or maybe same wire in a synchronized way can be used for data as well as for signals. Okay, now defining a data path. Data path is a set of functional unit that carries out data processing operation. Data path along with the control unit makes up the CPU of a computer system. Now again, control unit cannot work alone. It needs the help of some sort of communication medium or path, some sort of communication path to carry out its signal, and that path is data path. Okay, so that path is basically a wire, and that wire may be carrying the signals for the control unit as well as the data for the CPU components. So data path is shared by many devices, that is multi-point line with one or more conductors for transmitting signal, data or power. So one wire, if we say that one wire, for example, I am taking one wire that may be used for carrying signals, for carrying data, or for carrying the power. Currently data path can be configured only once, that is, it's a fixed data path. Once we are finalizing the circuit, there only we are finalizing the data paths. So we want to say in this particular point that data paths cannot be varied after its design. After the hardware is finalized, we cannot change the data paths. Now a common term for data path is bus, a collection of wires, copper tracks that connect several devices is called as bus. This is the simplest definition, that a wire, collection of wire, not a single wire. We'll see why we are talking about collection of wires, or copper tracks on the PCB. These connects several devices. Okay, several devices are connected via wires, and these wires are called as bus. Now basically a bus is communicating system, okay, that transfers data between component inside a computer or between computers. Means a communication system may be in the form of wire or maybe in the form of copper tracks on PCB, which is used to transfer data among the components of CPU or maybe among the computers. Okay, so that is called as bus. Okay, now it includes hardware components like wires, optical fibers, etc., and software including communication protocol. So a bus may be a set of wires for connecting different computers, optical fibers or copper wires for connecting different computers, or maybe copper path or track for connecting different components within the motherboard, or maybe a software for communication protocol. So any sort of thing is basically the communicating system. When a word of data is transferred between units of CPU, all its bits or bytes must be transferred in parallel. That is, all the units of CPU must be able to handle one full word of data at a given time. Now, if we talk about register or we talk about ALU, then ALU is not working for one bit. It's working for set of bits, or we can say byte. A register may be for 1 byte, that is 8-bit collection of 8 bits. So if we'll keep only one wire for connecting two components, it means we can transfer only 1 bit at a time. And 1 bit, then second bit, then third bit, then fourth bit. How long will transfer 1 byte? 8 cycles will be requiring for transferring 1 byte. So what other option is there? We can transfer all the 8 bits in parallel to the other component. So if in parallel we are transferring 8 bits, then we require 8 different wires to carry 8 different bits. Okay, so a bus, that's why in the earlier definition bus is called as collection of wires. Okay, so collection of wires means at least 8 wires we will be requiring to transfer 1 byte of data. And if we talk about word maybe have 2 bytes, 4 bytes, 8 bytes, 16 bytes, 32 bytes. So that much 1 byte is requiring 8 bits. So that much wire we would be requiring for transferring the data. And all these bits will be transferred at the same instance of a time, or we can say the entire full word of the data would be transferred at a given time. Now this requires considerable number of wires to establish the necessary connection, of course. And these wires or the lines are not only required for data transfer but also for addressing and control purpose. Okay, so earlier we discussed that the control unit requires some wires to transfer signals, but those wires can be used for data. Now here we are classifying it that the wires which we require for the communicating purpose is not only for signals or for data, but it is also for addressing. Okay, so these wire lines are not only required for data transfer but also for addressing as well as for control purpose. The processor interacts with the memory with memory bus, input output devices with with IO bus. So what it means, we have different type of buses depending upon to whom we are connecting. If we are within the CPU, then that is what the internal bus. But if the bus or the wires are connecting the memory, then it is memory bus. If it is connecting with IO devices, then it would be IO bus. Okay, so likewise, if it is carrying the address, it would be address bus. If it is carrying data, it would be data bus. If it would be carrying signals, control signals, it would be control bus. Or if it is carrying power, then it would be power bus. Okay, so mainly we are dividing it into 3 portions. Okay, there are 3 main grouping of buses, that is data bus, address bus and control bus. Address bus, these buses are solely used for carrying the addresses. Okay, data buses, these are only used for carrying data. Control buses, these are used only for carrying the control signals. Apart from these 3 major category, power bus is also there. It is very rarely the term is very rarely used, power bus. Normally the famous terms are address bus we require, data bus we require, control bus we require, and all that. We very rarely talk about the power bus because it is providing the power supply, sometimes power signals, or carrying the clocks. Okay, clock pulses. Now the bus may be dedicated. Okay, so if we in the earlier slide we talk about the address bus and we said it is only for transferring the addresses. So what it means, it is dedicated for address. And if the bus is only transfer data, it is dedicated for data transfer. So these would be dedicated. But sometimes it may happen that one bus may be used for carrying the address as well as data as well as control signals. So these would be called as multiplexed or multiple use of the buses. Okay, so the bus may be dedicated, that is it can be used only for single purpose, or it can be multiplexed, means can be used for multiple purpose. And the organization of bus enhances the speed of the operation. The way we are putting the buses into the CPU or in the CPU organization, it affects the speed of the CPU. Okay, if we say that we have only one copper wire to transmit the 1 byte data among the CPU, for example I am taking, so what it means, all the data would be travel in a serial manner, bit 0 b0, then b1 b2 b3 till b7. It goes for transferring one byte, so it takes time. While if I say that 8 wires or 8 buses are there to transfer one byte, that at the same instance of a time all 8 bits will be parallelly transferred, and it would be 8 times lesser than the earlier case. Whatever in the first case we said that sequentially we are transferring the bit. Okay, so it may take 8 clocks. Suppose if it takes 8 clocks, then in the later case it will take only 1 clock to transfer the data. Okay, so time would get reduced 8 times. So what I mean to say, the way we are organizing the bus, the way we are connecting the bus to the components, it affects the speed of the processor. Okay, so the bus lines in the bus structures are divided into 3 groups. So to enhance the speed, we are having different categories or different organization of buses: single bus structure, 2 bus structure, and 3 bus structure. These are the normal structures that different system uses. Okay, single bus, 2 bus, and 3 bus. We'll see in detail in the later slides. Now, what is single bus architecture? In single bus organization, a single bus is used for multiple purpose. What it means, we discussed that a single bus can be used for address as well as for data, for control signals. So if it is used for all kind of a purpose, it is called as multiplexed. Okay, multiplexed way. So here in a single bus architecture, we have only one bus, and that particular bus at one instance of a time can be used for one particular purpose. Like if you are carrying the instruction, it is used for data, carrying the data. At another time it carries the addresses. At another instance of a time it carries the control signal. Okay, what is the property of this single bus architecture? It is unidirectional. Means if unidirectional means if the address is released from PC to the bus, so it goes from PC to MAR. When PC to MAR, then no other operation would be performed. Only one operation, that is 2 devices would get connected, 2 components, not devices. Here in this particular case, 2 components, one is PC, another is MAR. Both these 2 components are communicating in one direction from PC to MAR. No other communication can be performed because it is a single architecture. If you try to send data from from another component to PC, then it would be a contention. Okay, so we can have only one direction of data. 2 devices at an instance of a time can communicate in single bus architecture. All the components of a CPU, that is set of general purpose register, program counter, PC, instruction register, memory address register, memory data register, or memory buffer register, many people call it as MBR, are connected with the single bus. Okay, so all these internal components are connected with single bus only. Memory read-write operation can be done with MAR and MDR, but one at an instance of a time, because we are using single bus. So at an instance of a time, we can either send the addresses of the memory location to MAR, or we can have the data in MDR. So this is what why we have only single instance, because we do have only single bus. As it has only one transfer at a time, only 2 units can be actively use the bus at any given instance of time. I had taken the example, like if PC is transferring the address to MAR, then what it means, only one direction of data to 2 components can communicate at an instance of a time. It has low cost with flexibility for connecting peripheral devices. As only one bus is required, obviously the cost would be low. Operating speed of the system is low. Naturally, when 2 components are communicating, rest all need to be in wait state, so that the bus, when the bus would be free, then only they can transfer the data. See, this can happen that while transferring the data from PC to MAR, some data, while transferring the address from PC to MAR, some data can be traveled to ALU, or among the registers some data transfer may be carried out, but this cannot be done in single bus architecture, because if PC is accessing the data bus, no other component is allowed to access the bus, so obviously the speed would be low. We cannot have a parallel operation because we have only one bus, and this organization, in one bus organization, each and every operation is sequential, because unless and until one component would release the bus, the another cannot take it forcefully, it has to go in the sequence. And this organization is used for small machines like mini computers and microcomputers. And here is the bus architecture. You can see the leftmost is general purpose register, and at the top side one horizontal bus is there. At the top line you can see the bus 1, and the general purpose register is connected with bus 1. Likewise PC, IR, MAR, MDR all are connected with the single bus B1. Likewise the temporary register register RA and RB is also connected. RA and RB of ALU is again connected with bus 1, and the ALU, the output portion of the ALU is again connected with bus 1. So you can see all the components are directly connected with bus 1. Okay, so this is what the single bus of the CPU. Don't get confused with the memory bus which is drawn at the back side. This is not the CPU bus. Okay, so the CPU bus is the bus 1, the horizontal line at the top side, and all the components, even the MAR, MDR are also connected with bus 1. This is the simple architecture of single bus organization. Now the operation in the single bus organization, how the operation can be done. The program counter points to the memory location from where the next instruction is to be fetched. Obviously PC will first take the access of the bus 1, which is at the horizontal portion. Okay, and the program counter points to the memory location from the next instruction to be fetched. Instruction register holds the copy of the IR. Instruction register is what? IR. Once the MAR will locate the memory location, it will read the data. It will transfer the instruction over the bus. From that bus, the instruction will be transferred to IR. IR holds the copy of the current instruction. In case of one bus organization, at a time only one operand can be read from the bus. If the instruction carries 2 operands which is present in the memory location, then at an instance of a time only one operand can be fetched from the memory, because we do have only single bus. If the requirement is to read 2 operands for the operation, then read operation need to be carried out twice. First we need to read first operand, then after completion, after successfully fetching the first operand from memory to the specified register of ALU, will initiate the reading of the second operand, and this makes the process a little longer, and that's why the speed of the single bus architecture is slow. Now 2 bus organization. To overcome the disadvantage of 1 bus organization, 2 bus organization can be used. The major disadvantage of single bus architecture is what? Everything is in sequence. If 2 different components try to communicate, then it is not possible in case of single bus organization. While this particular phenomena can be executed using the 2 bus organization. If we have 2 buses, then 2 different pair can communicate with each other, and this some sort of parallelism would be there. In single bus, it's totally sequential. We cannot have any parallel operation. 2 independent pair cannot even talk in single bus. So if we want to make 2 individual pair of components in a communication system, then we need to insert one more bus, and that's why we do have the 2 bus architecture. So in 2 bus organization, there are 2 buses. bidirectional data transfer is feasible. Okay, bidirectional data transfer means if PC is transferring address to MAR, then meanwhile two registers can transfer the data among this between themselves. Okay, R1 can transfer data to R2 using the second bus. Okay, so in this way two directional data can be transferred. The general purpose register can read and write from both the buses. It's not compulsory that we have only single bus. We can have two buses, so one bus can have read operation, another can have a write operation. In this case, two operand can be fetched at the same time because there are two buses. So again, we need not to go in a sequential manner for two operands. We have two buses, so two operations can be performed in parallel. Okay. Now the diagram shows bus 1 and bus 2, two bus organization, one horizontal line at the top side, one horizontal line at the bottom side. And see, the general purpose register at the left hand side are connected with bus 1 as well as with bus 2. Likewise, PC is connected with bus 1 as well as with bus 2. IR is connected with bus 1 as well as, IR is connected only with bus 1. MAR is connected with bus 1 as well as with the memory bus. MDR is connected with bus 1 as well as with bus 2. Likewise, ALU is connected with bus 1 and bus 2. And temporary register, temporary output register is again connected with bus 1 and bus 2. So meanwhile, see, if bus 1 is busy and transferring the data with PC and MAR, then general purpose register using the bus 2 can transfer the data. Okay, like ALU temporary register can transfer the data to general purpose register using bus 2. Meanwhile, when PC is transferring data to MAR. So in the previous instruction, the result storage process can be carried out along with the next instruction. That is what the PC is sending the next instruction address to MAR. So these two things in parallel can be done using the two bus organization. Now one bus fetches the operand of ALU and another bus can fetch for register. So these two parallel operation can be done. Okay. You can see ALU is connected, ALU output register is connected with bus 2 as well as with bus 1. So I said that ALU can communicate with general purpose register, and meanwhile the special purpose register can communicate either with the memory or either with some other devices using the bus 1. A situation may arise when both buses are busy fetching operands. Output can be stored in the temporary register, and when the buses are free, a particular output can be dumped onto the buses. This basically indicates the disadvantage of two bus organization. Means in two bus organization there may be a situation where although we do have two buses, but still some operation is in the waiting state. Okay, so two operands are there in the instruction, but the previous instruction has already been executed in ALU and the result is waiting in the temporary register of ALU because both the buses are busy in fetching the both operands. Okay, so in this particular case the output register of the ALU, temporary output register of ALU has to wait for the bus till it get freed. So this is what this may be a scenario that may occur, and this lead to the disadvantage of two bus architecture. There are two parts of two bus organization, that is in bus and out bus. From in bus, the general purpose register can read the data, and to out bus the general purpose register can write the data. Okay. These buses are dedicated, and in two bus operations are parallel rather than sequential. We already had discussed that it has parallel operations as compared to single bus, hence the operating speed of the system is good in comparison with the single bus organization. Okay, now the third one is the three bus organization. Three bus structure have multiple devices can operate simultaneously. Obviously, when we have three buses, we can have multiple options for data transfer, or we can say three independent pair can communicate at the same instance of a time. It provides bidirectional data transfer, obviously, because multiple buses are there. And in 3-bus organization, there is out bus 1, out bus 2, and in bus 1. Okay, and from the out buses, the machine can get the operands which can come from the general purpose register, and these operands can be evaluated in ALU. Now, see, in the bus organization, see in the just look at the diagram. In general purpose register, they are connected with bus 1 and in bus 1 and out bus 1. Okay, and ALU is connected with output is connected with bus 1 in bus 1, and input are connected with out bus 1 and out bus 2. Likewise, the PC is connected with bus 1 and out bus 1. IR is connected with in bus and out bus 1. MAR is connected with bus 1 and memory bus. MDR is connected with bus 1 and out bus 1. So out bus 2 is especially for like we can say that if two operands are there, then out bus 1 and out bus 2 can be used for inputting two operands at the same time to ALU, while the in bus can use to read the data from the ALU, output data from ALU, and can be used to write the data. In is used to write the data in general purpose register. Okay, while out buses cannot be used for writing the data in general purpose registers. So what we said in the previous slide, that in 3-bus organization there are out bus 1, out bus 2, and in bus 1, and from out buses the machine can get operands. Now you can observe, machine can get operands, operand 1 from out bus 1, operand 2 from out bus 2. We can get the operands from out buses, which can come from general purpose register, and these operand can be evaluated in ALU, and the writing operation would be done via the in bus, that is in bus 1. So writing operation can be done from from ALU output register. We can have ALU result register. We can take the data and we can write to the the general purpose register. Okay, while we can read the general purpose register and can transfer the data to out buses, out bus 1 and out bus 2. Okay. Now the out bus is dropped on in bus so that it can send to the respective register. This implementation is a bit complex. Okay, while we were discussing with the diagram, we need to take care of the thing from where we need to connect the output of ALU to whom, which out bus 1 or out bus 2 we need to connect to GPR or operand 1 or operand 2. So it's a bit complex, but it is faster because we have 3 buses and parallelly we can transfer lots of the data, or we can say 3 pair of components can communicate with each other, 3 independent pair of communication. We can say that they can communicate with each other at the same instance of a time. Why I am saying that independent pair? Because we cannot say that R1, if we are taking register, general purpose register GPR R1, if it is if some other bus is reading the data, we cannot at the same instance of a time writing that writing data in that particular register, because if we do this particular thing, those two events are not independent, they will be dependent, because R1 would be common in that particular event. So components which are communicating with each other should be independent to each other. Like we can say that R1 and R2 is providing data to the operands to out bus 1 and out bus 2. Meanwhile, R4 is taking the data output of the previous instruction from ALU. So these are the independent events. These can happen in parallel. Okay, and this 3-bus architecture is developed to overcome the disadvantages of 2-bus architecture. Now, in parallel, two operands can flow into and out of the ALU. That we had seen how the bus 1, bus 2 and in bus is connected with ALU. So with that with the observation of the diagram, we can clear this particular point, that in parallel two operands can flow into and out of the ALU, and it was developed to overcome the busy waiting problem of the two bus organization. I told you that three bus architecture is basically overcomes it is an enhanced version of two bus architecture, and whatever waiting cycle we had seen in two bus architecture, like if two operands are fetching at the same instance of a time from memory, then the output register of ALU need to wait for its turn for writing the data either in the register or in the bus, because both the buses are busy in carrying the operand in case of two bus architecture. So that busy state of ALU for writing the result can be overcome here in three bus architecture. So busy wait can be avoided by using the three bus architecture. In this structure, after execution, the output can be dropped on the bus without waiting because the presence of the extra bus. Now the main advantage of three bus architecture is over a single bus architecture, the sizes increase. The size of the register can be increased because more number of register we can access at the same instance of a time, and reduction of the number of the cycles for execution, because here we need not to wait for the independent events. Independent events can go in parallel for execution and increase the speed of the execution and faster the execution. When things are in parallel, then obviously the overall time required for execution of an instruction will get reduced. So here we are winding up with the bus architecture, and we are concentrating on how the control unit is contributing in generating how the control unit is generating the control signal. The third portion of our today's topic is ALU, data path and control unit. So first we had seen what is ALU, then we had gone what is data path or the bus architecture, and the third is control unit. So in control unit we will see how the instructions, how the signals for executing the instructions are generated, what are the different types of control units, and how these different types of control unit are generating these signals, and which type of control unit we should use for which kind of computer. Okay, so we'll see this particular thing in the third topic. So control unit is responsible to handle computer's memory, arithmetic and logical unit, and the output devices, and respond to the instruction that have been sent to the processor. So overall we can say the master or the brain of the computer for controlling. Okay, for doing the calculation, the brain is ALU, but to overall control the entire CPU is the responsibility of the control unit. It basically synchronizes all the events. It basically provides timing, different timings it controls, and different components it connects, and as per the time requirement, as per the instruction, it releases the instructions to the components, and it overall in an organized way it executes the instructions. So control unit is connected to all the components of the CPU. That is, it is connected with ALU, it is connected with memory, it is connected with IO devices, it is connected with the processors, other like GPR, special purpose register, and all that. It is connected to every component of the CPU. It fetches internal instructions of the program from the main memory to the processor instruction registers, and based on this register content, the control unit generates a control signal that supervises the execution of these instructions. Now, what it means, when we are fetching the instruction, we don't know, while fetching we don't know what exactly we are going to execute. A system cannot understand while fetching the instruction, when the instruction is bringing to IR from main memory, it cannot predict what exactly it carries. It carries single operand, it carries two operands, the operands are present in the register, operands are present in the memory, or whatever. we cannot predict. But once the instruction is in IR, it goes to the decoder and the instruction get decoded, and after decoding we'll understand what kind of instruction it is. Is it arithmetic instruction? Is it logical instruction? Is it data transfer instruction? Is it IO instruction, or what kind of instruction it is? After decoding we'll understand what types of operand or how many operands are there along with this instruction. So after decoding we'll get all these things. So after decoding, the control signal, the control unit will release the signals to perform or to execute that particular instruction in a proper way. So a control unit, what control unit does, what we can say कि after receiving the input information, it converts the input information into control signal. Okay, a control unit works by receiving input information to which it converts it into the control signal. So where is the input information? The input information is within the instruction. Okay, so instruction will basically tell us after decoding what kind of action we need to take out, or what kind of action a CPU need to take out. So a control unit works by receiving input information to which it converts into control signals. So after decoding the instruction, it releases the control signals. It then sends the signals to the central processor. The computer's processor then tell the attached hardware what operation to perform, and the functions that a control unit performs are dependent on the type of CPU, because the architecture of the CPU varies from manufacturer to manufacturer. Okay, so again ultimately we can say the working of the control unit is depending upon the manufacturer or the type of CPU. Okay, now a small rough diagram we are here for the control unit. So the control unit, what control unit do have as an input, or what it releases as an output? The instruction register IR, because once it get decodes, it tells the control unit what to do next. Then flags, we in the early classes we talked about the status register or flag register. Okay, flag word CW we talked about, and there are different bits to tell different status of the calculation or the previous executed instruction. We have clock to synchronize that which signal must be released first, which second, which third, and all these things. We have control signals with CPU. Okay, and the control bus is telling the control signals from the control bus, and we are giving the signals to control bus also. Okay, so one arrow is from control bus to control unit, another arrow is from control unit to control bus. So we have all the instructions of control unit, or all the signals of the control unit cannot be released at one instance of a time. We need to take some time. Some signals given should be released early, some signals should be released at the later stage, so that the execution would be in a proper manner. It should get executed in a sequential way. Okay, so clock we are using so that when to release which signal, and sometimes the control bus also gives the feedback. From the control bus we are getting this control bus, we are getting the control signals, as well as we are giving the signals to control bus also. Okay, and some signals, control signals within the CPU. Some control signals we need to provide to outside the CPU, like memory is connected, we need to provide the signals to read instruction, to write instruction. So these read write instruction would be generated from the control unit itself. Okay, so first of all we'll see what about the clock, because in the starting slide also I talked about the clock timing. So what is clock? Repetitive sequence of pulses, a single pulse which is sufficient to what we can say to execute one particular portion, one complete particular portion of CPU. Okay, so we may have multiple clocks, but clock is a sufficient time to execute one proper unit, one proper instruction or a part of instruction. Okay, and we cannot say that one clock is 1 second or one pulse is 1 second. even in 1 second there are lots of the clocks, or there are lots of the pulses. Okay, it's too short in time. Okay, so basically clock or pulses a clock is basically a cycle. It's a signal. Basically it's a electronic pulse of a CPU, and a processor can complete millions of a clock cycles every second. Okay, so we can say that a pulse in a second, lots of the pulses, million of the pulses can be there, million of the cycles can be there. And processor speeds are often measured in megahertz or gigahertz, or as a processor's clock speed. Okay, so clock is basically a pulse, a unit in which we can say how much time is required to execute one particular portion of the instruction. Okay, so it's repetitive sequence. So it's a repetitive sequence of pulses, and it's useful for measuring duration of micro operations. It must be long enough to allow signal propagation. Different control signals at different times within instruction cycle are there, and need a counter with different control signals for T1, T2, etc. Okay, so we can say that clock is used for measuring the duration of micro operations. So, what we can say that how many clocks are required to execute one micro operation. So here we can measure the execution of a micro operation in terms of clock, and what is the condition that clock must be long enough to allow a single signal propagation from source to destination. And different control signals at different timings within instruction cycles are there, and we need some sort of counter. As we said in the point 2 that we measure the duration of the micro operation, so we need a counter with different control signals like T1, T2, T3. Like one micro operation get executed in 4 clock cycle. 4 clock cycle means T0, T1, T2 and T3. So this was what the counter which measures the 4 clock cycles that one micro operation is executed in 4 clock cycles. Now a computer executes a program in following step. First is the fetch or the execute cycle. So it's not exactly directly the execute cycle, it is basically the fetch cycle, where we get the instruction whose address is in the PC from memory into register IR, and at the same instance of a time the content of the PC is incremented by one location, so that now the latest PC value should indicate the next value of the memory location. Then after getting the instruction into IR, we decode the instruction. What exactly we mean by decoding the instruction? Decoding means understand the instruction, its addressing mode, its type of operands, number of the operands, etc. Then calculate effective address and fetch the operands, because once we'll bring the instruction, now it's turn to bring the operands. After decoding, we'll understand how many operands are there, what kind of operands are there. As we talk about the addressing mode, addressing mode tells us what type of operands and how many operands are there. Okay, whether the operands are in memory, in register, wherever it is. So we need to fetch it to the proper place and then we'll execute it. Now the execution cycle do requires the operations and write back the result of the instruction. Again, where to write the result is specified in the instruction itself. Okay, now the control unit can be classified into two types. One is hardwired control unit, another is microprogrammed control unit. Now, why we are categorizing the control unit? See, the control unit is basically generating the signals, okay, and the signals along with the clock. See, recall the diagram. We have a clock signal to the input of the control unit, and we have IR as an input to the control unit, because IR tells us how to carry out or how to generate the signal, what kind of signal we need to generate for executing one proper execution. And these things, like with the help of the clock and with the help of the IR decoded content, we can generate the signals, we can send the signal to the control bus and all that. But which kind of like, as we said, that CU is again dependent upon the different type of manufacturer. So which kind of control unit we want? Does we want a rigid control unit which is once designed during the manufacturing and it's same throughout its life, or we want some sort of flexible control unit which may be altered after the design? So that is our requirement, and that is also the manufacturer's wish to design the thing. So depending upon these things, we can classify the control unit into two portions. One is hardwired control unit and another is microprogrammed control unit. Now the hardwire control unit, basically it consists a few components. A few components mean it is control unit inputs. Obviously flag would be there, because once we are generating if we are generating the control signals, we do need flags, status of the flags. We do need control bus, we need instruction register. Without instruction register we cannot generate the decoded codes. Okay, so these are the basic requirement. Input, we need clock, we need some inputs like clock, flag register, IR. Okay, and using these things will generate the signals. Okay, so control input, in control input, flags and control buses are there, and each bit means something. So each 0 or 1 in a signal means a lot. Okay, now opcode causes different control signals for each different instruction and unique logic for each opcode. We cannot say that once we are writing add operand 1 comma operand 2, and this would have the same logic for add operand 1. So both the instructions are different, although both are the addition instructions, but their number of operands are different, so their logic would be different. So each instruction would have a unique logic code. And decoder takes encoded input and produces a single output for the signal, and whenever we have n binary inputs at the decoder, we will get the 2 raised to power n outputs. The control signals that are important for the instruction execution controls are generated by specially designed hardware logical circuit, and the signal generation method cannot be modified without the physical change of the circuit structure. Now here we'll discuss these 2 points in detail, because the entire hardwire control unit depends upon the thing. See, the control unit, we had seen a rough diagram of control unit, that there is one box which is supplied with the IR, some flags, some clock, and it is generating some sort of signals. Okay, so what is there in the box? In the box the circuits are there. Okay, and if the circuits are rigid enough that cannot be modified after design, then it is hardware. This is the clear-cut definition of hardwired control unit, that once it is designed, it cannot be altered. And what does that box of hardwired control unit consist? It consists lots of the circuit. and each circuit for generating signals of one particular instruction. Like I had taken the example of add operand 1, okay, add operand 1 comma operand 2. These two are two different signals, and for these two different signals the control signals would be different. For the circuit for generating the control signals for these two instructions would be definitely different. And once it is designed, in case of hardwired control unit, once it is designed, once it is finalized, it cannot be altered after deployment. Okay, we cannot change it, we cannot alter it, we cannot modify it. Okay, so it's fixed. That's why the name itself suggests hardwired. Once the circuit is designed, it cannot change it. The control signals that are important for instruction execution, controls are generated by specially designed hardware logical circuit. These are the logical circuit designed, once designed in the hardware, cannot be modified. The signal generation method cannot be modified without physical change of the circuit. What the second point says, okay, it can be changed, but the change would be physical change. Okay, means if you want to change the hardware, you need to change the hardware of that control unit to make the changes, but without changing the hardware, you cannot make a single change in hardware control unit. So here we are stopping, and we'll continue the hardwired and the microprogrammed control unit in the forthcoming class, along with the problems, 8 problems with on these topics. Okay, thank you.